So this is going to be a short video on how the last year has been with the Tesla now that I've had it for 2 years, and what my thoughts are on the EV industry in general. And I will say that it is not going to be all sunshine and roses with the Tesla. For the most part, it's been perfect. We've done most of our charging at home, with the exception of the few trips that we've taken. Some very minor repairs involving the power seat switch, which was my fault. I missed a step and accidentally caught it in such a way as to break it off. But they came out, repaired it, not a problem. And aside from that, we've honestly not had any problems at all. It's been practically perfect. The supercharger experience, though, has been 99% perfect, maybe not 100%. And the main issue was one particular charger that we stopped at. First of all, where they put it, it's in kind of a cramped space. And for those of you who do not own Teslas or may not be aware, the charging port is on the rear left, so you have to back into the space. Well, where they put the charger, it's not exactly in an ideal location to do that. You can back in, but you got to be very careful, because people come in from the street and use that exact same space that you're trying to maneuver around to back into. And then once you're in there, this past time the charger worked just fine, but the very first time we tried it, it charged up to about 70%. We were aiming for 90%, and then it just stopped. Completely unbeknownst to us, just stopped. We were having lunch. Then I caught wind of this in the app, and I tried to restart it about a dozen times from inside the restaurant where we were eating. That didn't work. So the instant I finished my meal, I went out there, physically unplugged the cable and plugged it back in. And it started charging for 30 seconds and then quit. And it turns out my stall wasn't the only one having problems. That particular station was pretty much full. And there was this one guy who pulled in next to us, plugged in for about 30 seconds, unplugged, and left. So I don't know what was going on with that charging station, but with any luck, hopefully it'll never happen again. The only other problem we had was when the power was cut to a shopping center where another supercharger was located. And of course, when the power was cut to the shopping center, power was also cut to that particular charger. So we had to go somewhere else, so that was nice. Other than that, really not anything bad to speak of. A couple of software updates that have been kind of unusual. Some we like, some we hate, but of course that's personal preference. But a lot of people, as far as the EV industry, a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't know if I want an EV because of the charger situation. It is true that the charging networks are not perfect. In fact, the most reliable is Tesla, I'll be honest. From what I understand, the other networks, they're reliable, but at the same time, they do have a tendency to conk out on you more often. I remember one video where somebody tried to plug in at a Shell recharge station, and it did not go well. And that's where a website like Plugshare comes in. You can see here that we've got hundreds of stations all over the nation here, and you can zoom in to a particular area, and you could, let's just pick one at random here. Let's see. So here's an Electrify America. You can see it's rated 10. It's located at a Walmart, so if you wanted to stop and get some things, you could do that. And the super centers, I know they usually have like a restaurant, so you could go in there. And we could pick another charger here. And this is the Champagne Tesla supercharger. And you can see this one is primarily rated 8.8. And you can go down here. They give you information about the charger, the address, where it's overall located. And then here we are. We have check-ins, and people can leave comments here. And you can see here somebody parked here on March 21st, and they said that the two of the stalls are not working. So Plugshare is a really, really handy resource. Now, this particular one is not a fast charger. This one is what they call a J1772 level 2 charger. And what does that do? Well, that is like your home charging situation. You can also plug in at what are known as a NEMA 1450 outlet. This particular one says wall, and what does that mean? Well, that's your 120 volt outlet. Some people can actually make use of that, especially if you have a very short commute. But if you take any long trips, you're definitely going to want to use level 2 or preferably DC fast charging. And again, Plugshare is a wonderful resource to use in that regard. Now, if there's a charger here that has a wrench, we tap here, and that one is coming soon. Or actually, no, this one is under repair, but the wrench also means that it might be coming soon. And the other really cool part about this is there are actually people from the charging providers who will actually come on and leave comments. So this is honestly a really, really nice service. And I'm very happy to be a member of it. Here's another one. This is going to be installed at a convenience store, and it says coming soon, which means it's not yet ready, obviously. And again, you can take a look here. We can see the kind of stations they plan to put in. Now, what is Chatamo? Chatamo, I don't know the exact name that it spells out to, but it's Japanese to English. It roughly translates as, let's sit while we charge and have a cup of tea. Chatamo in the United States is dying big time. In fact, Nissan, who are pretty much the only supporters of Chatamo now with their Leaf, and I think Mitsubishi has one or two vehicles that use it, and the original Soul Electric, but it's really, really, really rare to see a vehicle with Chatamo. In the United States, Nissan, the biggest supporter of Chatamo in the States, has openly said that they will not be putting it on their new vehicles. Instead, they're going to be using the CCS SAE, which is effectively your fast charger. And in this particular instance, the network is going to be ChargePoint. So they're going to have a level 2 charger, which is ChargePoint actually has level 2 chargers that you can plug in at like your work, for example. Your employer could put them in. Your apartment could put them in. And level 2 charging is cheap enough to where the utility could effectively charge very little. So if you're living in an apartment, for example, it'd be very cheap to charge. Your fast charging is cheaper than gas, but can be a little bit higher than you might expect, depending on the location, because they set the price. However, the vast majority of your charging, if you can do it, would ideally be at home, at your apartment complex, or at work. You know, a lot of people would say, well, I need to charge up really quickly. Well, do you? I mean, let's take the example of work. You go in, you do your job for 8 hours, and you come out to a full charge. And another place that I think a level 2 charger would really be nice, we've got vehicles like the Fiat 500e, the original Nissan Leaf, original Kia Soul EV, all of which are great bargains on the used market. So I think we need to see level 2 chargers in high school parking lots. You know, a lot of young people, high school juniors and seniors are getting their driver's licenses, and it'd be nice for them, for their first car, I think, to be an EV, because we need to spread the word if we're going to get this adoption thing to work. Speaking of adoption, there is one other segment. We've got quite a few pickup trucks. We got the Rivian. We've got the Cybertruck coming whenever. We've got the Ford F-150 Lightning coming out actually next week at the time of this recording, and we've got the Chevy Silverado EV coming out next year. So we've got the trucks, we've got sedans, we've got a lot of SUVs, but we don't have any minivans yet. Volkswagen is, my hope, going to rectify that. However, they're going to be charging a pretty penny for theirs, because their ID Buzz is going to be their Halo product, so we'll have to see how that turns out. Chrysler this past week has openly said that they are openly going to be rethinking the minivan. They've got a plug-in hybrid now, so it's a step in the right direction, but I think we can do better. What about cost, though? Because I just mentioned that this VW ID Buzz is going to be their Halo product. It's going to be pretty expensive, 50 grand. Not everybody has 50 grand. I am well aware of this. So let's take the Hyundai Ioniq 5. In the past couple of weeks, including today, I've seen 3 of them on my roads. It's a lot bigger in person if you haven't seen one. But what's really super cool is if you go for the base model, okay, no add-ons whatsoever, with the exception of maybe the color, because I don't like dark colors and I really am partial to white and light interiors. So I went ahead and did white with the light interior. It came to $45,645. I don't know for certain because I haven't checked up in real time before making this video, but I think Hyundai is still eligible for their tax credit, which is $7,500 if you qualify. And that's a whole other kettle of fish that I'm not going to go into. Again, this is for illustrative purposes only. So $45,600 to start, tax credit at $75,000. And I decided to, as an example, price one of my family members' older cars, and Edmunds said $8,600, right? So if we take that $45,600 and apply the tax credit plus the trade-in, you come to $29,545, which is just under $30,000 for a reasonably sized family SUV, fully electric, 300 miles on a charge, and that's before any additional dealer discounts, state discounts. So it could potentially be even lower than that. So it's doable. It is very doable. If somebody says that EVs are too expensive, take a look at your own personal situation, but I think that they are becoming more and more doable every day. And a lot of people are saying too, well, I want 400, 500, 600 miles. When was the last time you drove that in one sitting? Let's take an average road trip, okay? So let's say you get an EV that gets 500 miles of range, okay? So what is the national speed limit? For most areas, it's 75. So let's say 75 miles an hour, 500 miles. You would be on the road for 6.5 hours to cover that distance. Would you stop? Of course you would. Restroom breaks, meals. If you have Fido, you got to let Fido out, your dog. You have kids, of course you got to let them out, get out all that energy. My point is, you wouldn't be driving that 6 hours in one gulp. So, if we can continue to get charging stations in at appropriate places, parks, restaurants, hiking trails even. Rivian, a while back, had signed an agreement, the Recreation Department of Tennessee, to put in their own chargers at hiking trails. And yes, I know Rivian's a luxury brand, but you get where I'm going with the example here, right? If we put chargers in the right places and make them openly available for cheap, I mean, it's just a matter of time before EVs become the mainstay. And I would say that those who are afraid of them, and by which I mean like range anxiety, broken chargers are a problem, as I have mentioned before, but things are getting better. And again, how many trips do you take on a regular basis where you drive maybe more than 100 miles, on a single charge? I've got an uncle who drives approximately 60 miles to work one way, and there is a supercharger not far from his house. Coming back from work, he could stop and charge up while getting a bite to eat. So it is very, very doable. There is one segment, however, that has not yet been addressed, at least not here in the States. Europe is beginning to address it in a really cool way. The EV market for wheelchair users. This is a converted Vauxhall Vivaro. That is a European, effectively minivan with an accessible ramp. Now, I'm not exactly sure what kind of modifications they used, but this is very new. This was only in the last couple of months at the time that I made this video. And I will leave a link to the article in the description for those that might be interested. I think, and this is just a guess, my guess is they went with the rear lift because of the battery constraints. My personal worry about wheelchair accessible EVs has been the weight of particularly a power chair on top of the batteries, because my question has always been in my head, how much weight can the batteries take? But again, these are just illustrative purposes, and my goal was to show you the progress, and progress is being made. I'd say progress is being made very well. Nowhere to go but up. But my personal experience with the Tesla has been nothing but positive. And a lot of people, I've been watching a couple of Chevy Bolt videos. A lot of people really like their Bolts. I think it's just a matter of time, especially now that with these EV pickups coming out, before EVs really tip over the glass and the water comes spilling out. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're making progress? Do you think we still have a long way to go? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.